Hey everybody, Finbar here. I hope you're having a wonderful day. You know, after the last video went out, the one where I talked about why couldn't Google build this and why didn't Amazon build, this, I got a lot of messages, and most of them were actually, funnily enough, not about Google or Amazon. They were about the same thing. People were saying, okay, well, Finn, I get it. Now I know what virtual video is, and now I can see how it works. And I sort of now understand why Google and Amazon didn't build it. But what I want to know now is what the world looks like when this thing is everywhere. And it's a fair question, right? Because when you spend as long as I have building something from the ground up, years, arguably years before anyone was really paying attention, you sometimes forget that the rest of the world hasn't been living inside your brain. So today I want to answer that question properly. Again, in typical my style, with a bit of storytelling. Because what's coming next isn't really a technology shift. In my opinion, it's a complete inversion of how media works, how content gets made, delivered, and experienced by every single person on the planet. This is called Agentic Content, and I believe once you see it, you can't unsee it. So let me start by telling you something about the world that you and I are living in right now. Every single day, humanity uploads roughly 720,000 hours of video just to YouTube alone. Let's add TikTok, Instagram, Netflix, podcasts, live streams, sports feeds, corporate training, news broadcasts, and we're producing more content in a single day than any human being could consume in a lifetime, multiple lifetimes. We are drowning in content, and yet most of us can't find the thing that we actually want to watch, or it takes a large chunk of our time trying to find something that in the moment is good and relevant. And that really is the paradox of the content age, right? The more that we make, the harder it becomes to find what really matters to you. So what I'm about to describe is how that problem gets solved. Not with another algorithm, not with another recommendation engine, with agents driving the next evolution of video experiences, content produced through agentic content. So let's go back for a moment. Before the internet, before cable, before broadcast television, there was the newspaper. And in every town, there was a newspaper boy. He didn't just deliver the paper, he knew you. He knew that Mrs. Callahan on Elm Street only cared about the local courts and the death notices. He knew that old Frank wanted the racing pages and nothing else. He knew that the Brennan family wanted their paper folded a certain way and left inside the storm door, never on the step. He couldn't change what was printed. The newspaper was the newspaper. One edition, same for everyone. But he was the interface. He was the layer between the content and the person. And in his own small way, he personalized the experience. Not the content itself, but the relationship you had with it. Then scale arrived. Radio, television, the internet, and the newspaper boy disappeared. We replaced him with broadcast. One signal, millions of receivers, the most efficient distribution model in history, yet the most impersonal. Every recommendation engine since, Netflix algorithm to TikTok's For You page, has been trying to get back what that newspaper boy had, a relationship, context, knowing what you need before you even ask. None of them have really gotten there, because they're all still doing the same thing. They're choosing from a fixed library of finished files and putting one in front of you. Agentic content doesn't choose a file, it builds one. Here's the shift. Today, content is a file. It's sealed, it's rendered, it's a finished object. A video is encoded, stored, and delivered identically to every viewer. The creative decisions that were once made in an edit suite are made, they're rendered, and they are permanent. Agentic content breaks that model entirely. Imagine an AI agent, not a chatbot, not a search engine, but an autonomous system that knows your preferences, your history, your context. It doesn't wait for you to search. It plans, it retrieves, it assembles. It takes the trillions of hours of human-made content that already exist and reshapes them dynamically in real time into an experience that is individually yours. Not a recommendation, an assembly. Your morning sports highlights are not the same as mine, for example. Not because a different file was selected from a library, but because an agent assembled a different sequence of moments. with different commentary, different camera angles, different pacing, tuned to what you care about and how much time you have. A training video for a surgeon in Tokyo is not the same as one for a medical student in Dublin. Same source footage, different assembly, different depth, different language, different emphasis. And this isn't science fiction. This is the agentic AI market was valued at nearly $5 billion in 2024, but yet it's projected to reach $45 billion by 2035. And the convergence of AI orchestration, generative video, and renderless assembly is creating an entire new category of media infrastructure. So let's talk about the economics of a trillion mixes, because this is where people's brains break. If every viewer gets a unique assembly, doesn't that mean that you have to render a unique file for every single person times X amount of times per day? Billions of viewers, billions of files. The storage on that alone would bankrupt you. Yes, it would, if you did it the old way. And this is where renderless assembly changes everything. Instead of creating a new rendered file for every personalized experience, you separate the video structure, its blueprint from its raw media. The blueprint is lightweight, it's programmable. It contains the instructions, which segments in what order, with what transitions, under what conditions. The media stays where it is, on the CDN, on the origin server, untouched, uncopied, unduplicated. At the moment of playback, and only at that moment, the agent resolves the blueprint into a stream. The viewer sees a seamless, personalized experience, but no new file was ever created. Now, the savings, they're not incremental. We're talking up to 70% reductions estimated in transcoding, storage, and compute costs. And that's not an optimization. That is a completely different business model. But then it comes to, okay, but now who owns the remix? This is where it gets really interesting, because the moment you allow AI agents to assemble content dynamically, you open a question that the entire media industry has been, in my view, terrified to answer. Who controls the rights? If an AI agent pulls 15 seconds from one program, 30 from another, overlays it with a generated narration and delivers a unique stream to one person in Manila at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, who gets paid? Who gave consent? Who is liable if something goes wrong? Now, in the old world, that question was, unmanageable, because the file was the unit of control. And it was so many of them. But in the past, you would license a file, you track the file, but you monetize the file. But in the agentic world, the file is gone. The unit of control has to move down to the scene, to the segment, to the individual sample. And this is what video tokens do. Cryptographically validated tokens that represent the authority to resolve a reference inside a virtual video container. Really complicated way. Basically, this says that rights, consent, and commercial terms can all be enforced at the exact moment of assembly. Not after, not approximately, exactly. Every scene level resolution triggers billing, royalties, and attribution. Does that automatically in real time. Now, studios can finally unlock the value of deep archives, decades of footage that today sit in vaults earning nothing, because the governance is embedded, not bolted on to the file. And this is where we get to the last audience. We are entering a world where the concept of an audience as we know it ceases to exist. Think about it. For 100 years, media has been built on the idea that you make one thing and show it to many people. The economics of broadcast, the economics of scale, one to many. Agentic content inverts that. It is one-to-one at scale. Every viewer becomes their own audience, their own channel, their own program director, except they don't have to do any of the work. The agent does it for them. 47% of US consumers are already using AI for at least one shopping task, right? The behavioral shift is not coming, it is here. And content consumption is coming next, and it will follow the same curve, in my view, faster. Live sports highlights assembled in seconds, personalized to your team. E-learning courses that reshape themselves around what you already know and where you're struggling, for example. News bulletins that are not edited for a demographic, but composed for you. Dynamic ad insertion where the creative itself is assembled based on context, not just selected from a library. This is the next trillion-dollar infrastructure layer, and most of the world hasn't even noticed it arriving. But we noticed it from our first filing date back in the late 2000s, where we saw a future where a different video format was required. We were there. Since 2014, when we were granted the first of our foundational patents on virtual video technology, we knew this day would come. And it's fair to say that we were ahead of our time, right? We didn't know about AI. We didn't actually start with AI. We started with a question. What if video isn't a file? That single question led to the architecture that makes agentic content possible. The separation of structure from media, the programmable container, the blueprint that agents can read, plan against, and resolve at runtime. And now, with video tokens, we've secured legal priority, a clear freedom to operate report, and the governance layer that makes all of this commercially safe. Rights enforced at the sample level, consent verified at the point of assembly, royalties triggered at the moment of resolution. And our new IP filings extend our patent protection through 2037. And the world is really catching up fast, right? In the last 9 months, up to 20% of all global e-commerce transactions have had an agent involved somewhere in the process. Visa has completed hundreds of live agent-initiated transactions. MasterCard, in partnership with Tier 1 banks across Europe, Australia and the US and Asia, has initiated regulated agentic payments. Google's agent payment protocol has 60 plus supporters. The agentic economy is not a concept anymore. It is a processing real spend at scale. And so it's real money right now. And just as agentic commerce, needs protocols and trust and tokenized consent to let AI agents buy on your behalf, agentic content needs exactly the same thing to let your AI agents build your media experience. And that's why we've developed what we've developed. So let's talk about, to finish this off, the newspaper boy knew what you wanted, right? He just couldn't change the paper. Now the paper changes itself. And the newspaper boy, he's an agent. So the question I want to leave you with, every piece of content you have ever watched was made for someone else's idea of who you are, a demographic, a segment, a data point in an audience of millions. What if that's over? What if every story you see, every highlight you watch, every lesson you learned was assembled in real time for you? What if the creators who made the original content got paid more fairly, more transparently, every single time their work was used? What if the economics of media didn't require you to be packaged and sold as an audience, but instead rewarded relevance, precision, and respect for your time? That world isn't far away, and it's the world that ION was built for. I'm Finbar O'Hanlon, and welcome to the age of agentic content.